Today's session right now is more on inclusivity. The theme is about how do we create workforces which are more inclusive. And I'm going to do one quick round of calling out our illustrious panelists here so that everybody in the room knows who you are. So I'll start from my left. We have Dr. Shalini Sareen, who's the board member of Schneider Electric and a co-chair of Savi. Welcome, Shalini. We have Ashish Agarwal, who's the Chief Administrative Officer, CAO of Cummins India. Hi, Ashish. Welcome on board. We have Ritika Thakur, who is the Chief Commercial Officer of Honeywell India. Hi, Ritika. We have Swati Sahai, Director, Government Affairs India, GE Vernova. Hi, Swati. We have Chitra Chhabra, who's the Director, Human Resources, Emerson, India. And we have Kiran Gupta, Chief Commercial and Government Affairs, Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited. Welcome all of you. What we'll do is we'll begin with one quick common question that I'll pose to all of you. And basically the whole theme is with the global energy transformation which is taking place. I think the need for a more inclusive and diverse workforce is being felt even more now in order to create a more resilient workforce. And I want to understand from each one of you what is your perspective of creating a inclusive workforce, which is going to be vital for the future of the energy sector. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Shalini, and then we'll just pass the mic around to everyone. And if you can just stick to a couple of minutes, that will.
Thank you so much, Namrata, and it's wonderful to have all the major energy companies represented out here. And I think a lot is already been spoken about how renewable energy gives us a lot of opportunity moving from fossil fuel to different forms of energy production, distribution, management, and services, which gives women a better opportunity because we don't have those remote located power plants that we have to take care of. But there is a transition already happening in terms of decentralization, digitization, decarbonization, etc. So I think there are a lot of practices already which are prevalent, but what is really going to move the needle is the conversation that we need to be having. So from a couple of years ago, we were 8% in the renewable sector. Women were represented about 8%, and now it's moved to about 16, 17%. But if we continue to move at this pace, it's going to take us a very, very long time. And with this rapid transformation, I think much more needs to happen. And therefore, we need to start with the entry barriers, that is, get more women out there to take up these courses. So the previous panel talked about, not having enough power electronics people women to find and hire. And I also serve on the board of Plaksha University, where we started a course on energy, and there were very few takers. So everybody wants those sexy courses on robotics and AI and ML and data science, but there are not enough people taking the energy course. So of course we need more sponsors, we need more mentors, we need more role models, but we need to find those women who take up these courses and inspire them to take those courses. I'm going to pause here as we move
Thanks
forward.
so much, Ritika.
Yeah, so the question is, why is gender diversity a particularly important topic in energy transition context, right?
And inclusivity. Yeah.
Yeah. So two main reasons in my head. Number one, a lot of energy transition is still an unsolved question. We know a lot, but there's still a lot that we don't know. It's going to take a lot of creative problem solving to get to the right answer in terms of what should be the ideal energy vector mix, what technologies are going to be winning, losing, etc. And there's a lot of research and reports out there that tell us that gender diverse groups are better equipped to come to good answers in such situations where creativity is required, where a lot of balancing out of different POVs is required. So that's my reason number one about why gender diversity and inclusivity is very important. And the second one is, I always promise Ripu to make sure that what I say does not leave the room, or at least it goes through a filter of political correctness before it leaves the room. But here's my thinking around it. A lot of sustainability and energy transition topics have remained on the fringe of big corporations so far because they are development sectors. They're not yet money-making sectors in a big way. Going forward, it's going to become more centerfold. It's going to be at the center of attention for CEOs and all that. And that's when we see that a lot of women who have been involved in the sector so far, they start to lose out. Because organizations, they start reverting to the known variables. The leaders that they know have led the organization in the past, they have a strong delivery record behind them. They would end up being in these leadership positions disproportionately. And I'm not saying that's wrong, as in it's just natural. That's how human minds work. You tend to revert to things that you know of so that you minimize risk. But it's very important for leaders to wear the diversity hat in this situation and make sure that you're pulling enough women in leadership positions so that they don't start to lose out as the topic becomes more mainstream. So that's my reason of method.
Great. Thanks, Ritika. Over to you, Chitra.
Okay, so Ritika, just adding to what you said, because she hit the right button. Because women in the leadership positions are important because there are decision making that is happening. There is innovation that is happening. There is a lot of inclusion that is required. So everything to what the two women said, and I'm sure every panel is going to agree here with me, is that if we do not have it now, because we're in the worm of things wherein the things have started becoming better, if we lose this now, it will never happen. If we continue driving this, it is going to someday happen. Now, when is that day is an important question. But having said that, momentum is important. We cannot guess what that day would be, but the momentum and the right approach and the attitude towards driving this change is equally important, I would say.
Great point. Ashish.
Okay. So for those of you who are wondering what I'm doing in this panel, I can very proudly say that I'm here because of my organization. So Cummins has about 38 to 40% female representation on the shop floor. So that is what enabled me to come here. And again, I'm so proud of each and every woman we have out there working the machines, working the lathe machine, doing all of that. My boss is a woman, her boss is a woman, and her boss is a woman. So we have about 60 to 70% women in the leadership teams globally and about 60% in India. Again, I say that with a lot of pride. I think that enabled me to be a part of such forums because I feel we might be doing something right to be able to sit here and proudly make these comments. How we do it, I'll very briefly mention that we are very careful in separation of picking up the right talent, irrespective of whether it's a man or a woman. I have never got a target. Look, you are dipping to 30%, please get to 50%. Never. But the diversity we see has enriched us so much. I think each and every person who's on the leadership team in Cummins is completely sold out on the fact that this is something which we have to do and we'll continue to do. But having said that, the target is 50%, so we are getting there.
Okay, wow, great. Swati?
Thank you so much for this opportunity, USISPF and my fellow panelists and everybody in the room. Very important, pertinent topic that we are discussing specifically in light of what we represent, energy sector. These days, if you look at the statistics, this is one sector which desperately need to actually pep up and get more women, more diversified workforce as part of their total workforce. We have dipped like anything. I would be brutal to accept and admit the fact that we stand nowhere in the sector. I mean, total sector, the energy, renewables, and power sector, we stand nowhere when it comes to diversity, inclusion, right representation of women workforce. It's not about one organization. It's not about any one company. It's about the total ecosystem that we are chasing. The first thing, I think, very rightly, everybody has pointed out in the prior sessions also here as well, it's very important to make power, energy, and renewables a sector more appealing to women and the girls out there studying STEM and part of the STEM education. We need the right, student or workforce and the sponsors who are sponsoring that kind of a STEM education which lead them to this sector. So I'm talking about this sector only right now. I'm not talking about the total ecosystem. How do I feel, agile, and how do I feel so attracted towards this sector? Because it's very challenging to be on the shop floor. And I recollect, I've recently joined my organization. I recollect somebody from the industry. So I was meeting with my peers in a get together, and somebody pointed out, Swati, you made a very astonishing decision by switching the sector. So by the way, I come from IT sector. That was my previous stint. So I've been in tech all throughout this while, and somebody said, such a courageous and such a astonishing decision that you've switched to energy and power sector where we don't get to see women. I said, is it? I did not know that. So by that time, I did not know the fact that we are actually underrepresented. I said, that's more fun. The more challenges you face, the more competitive you are. And now this is what I get to see as a connecting dot in my current organization, which is G Vernova. We see better workforce in terms of diversity, inclusion, LGBTQ, women, everybody, as sign of more competitiveness. So to be more appealing, so coming to the point, to be more appealing to all the stakeholders in the ecosystem that we operate in, right? Make ourselves visible, competitive, and valuable. I think we need more women. We need more other segments of the underrepresented parts.
Great. Okay, thank you so much. Kiran?
Hi, good afternoon to all, and thanks for the opportunity given. So, well, as I'm also listening to this thing since morning, so definitely these kind of platforms should not be there. But as of now, I think it is required, as of now. So, I come from Tata Power with 3 decades of experience in power sector itself. And the question is that why there should be a need and for inclusivity and women in energy. So I think we all nowadays are talking of technology and innovation. So to me, I think the very big point is, apart from many others which have been talked about, is a different perspective, right? So every individual has a different perspective, but gender-wise also, yes, women also have a different perspective. So whether a glass is half full or half empty. So till now, especially the energy sector, because with my 30 years of experience, I really find I have been always 1 in 30 when I'm on a table of conferences, or like I'm a board member also. So I have always been 1 in 30. So whether the company provides a inclusive environment or not, being 1 in 30 in your career, it itself is really challenging. So why it should be there is that women bring a different perspective. And when we talk of in today's world of innovation technology, so I think there is the genesis that a different perspective from the conventional which has been there till now is required. So I was the first women to be heading the operations in Tata Power Delhi. And I looked at that transformer has always been on 2 poles. If any one of you had ever happened to look at the street. So then there was a need that we don't have space in Delhi, right? So why can't a transformer be on a single pole? So we took up on the engineering front, and coming from the engineering background, so why it could not be there? So challenging the status quo, giving a different perspective. So I think that's a very big need which is required in today's time, especially to scale up to the representation which we aspire for, and to scale up to the growth which India looks up to. Second, I think a very big need when we as women are coming on board in at any level is the kind of natural adaptability and sensitivity which we have to looking at any issue. So when I was made the head commercial 10 years back, so why a consumer is not paying a bill? I'm just giving very simple example. So generally people, the seniors who have been there for 20 years, अरे नहीं दिया कुछ consumer होता ही ऐसे है, समझ नहीं आया दिया नहीं. but then thinking it with the sensitivity, ki why one has not paid. I have never like not paid my consumer. I have never done that, my bill. So why this consumer has not paid? So not leaving it to the last and actually looking into the things and getting the policy changes done, that why, what went wrong. So I think to me, these come the very basic needs which are there in our society and the entire energy sector especially, which really drive this need. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. So I think the why question is out of the way. We all agree, and you've all given your practitioner's perspective of why inclusivity is needed and important, right? I think the next round we'll now move into the how, and how each of you, being the leaders in your own, sectors, your own industries, how are you driving this, which is going to be important for all of us to learn from. And I'm going to start with you, Dr. Shalini, because as co-chair of Savvy, and as a pioneer, how do you see mentorship and industry collaborations shaping a more inclusive and skilled workforce for the energy transition?
Thank you so much. And Savi has been making its own effort for the last couple of years. But like I said, for us to accelerate this, in the previous session, we heard Dr. Tripta talk about how she's building capacity. I think there also she asked for more sponsorship. She's not getting enough sponsors. We have got a lot of traction on mentorship. And I think it's because we have women in energy fairly represented now, at least the number is increasing, we are able to get mentorship, but we also need sponsorship. And that will accelerate the move. The other is collaboration. And in fact, I just got hold of Dr. Tripta while she was moving out. I said, universities like Plaksha, where we are struggling to get students to take up the energy course. Or I think there was somebody who said on research, we need more women-led projects to get approved. And even at Schneider, we had this amazing event which took a lot of traction. It's called Go Green in the City. We had this program in 6,000 universities, and we only mandated that the innovation challenge paper or project will be submitted provided there is one woman on that team. And that's how we were able to pull the women out, participate, and then we had global winning teams also coming from India. And of course, they were sent to Grenoble, and then they got sponsorship to get the project out, and incubators, etc., etc. So just to summarize, I think mentorship, we have been able to get some traction. We need more of, but sponsorship, we badly need, and we need to accelerate. And therefore, this is a plea to all corporates, wherever there are institutes which have these programs, please go ahead and sponsor and not just speak.
Thank you so much. Sponsorship is what we're taking from your, sort of how to move this forward. I'm going to move to Ashish, you. And it's fascinating to note that 35 to 40% of Cummins workforce is on the shop floor. How do you do it? So, that question of what specific strategies, you did touch upon it in the first round when it was not supposed to be, but maybe to go a little deeper than there and connect it to what, Dr. Shalini was talking about in terms of the collaborations and in terms of what have you done in terms of partnerships to really move this needle forward in Cummins?
Sure. So I won't go through the entire list because it's quite long. I'll just pick up the top 3 or 4 points. A few things which have worked very well for us is, first of all, being gender blind. So saying it and understanding it in the right way was probably a challenge initially, but we were able to cross that hump over a lot of training, over a lot of understanding, over a lot of storytelling. The other piece which we get a lot is to be role modeling. So, for example, if I as a leader behave in a particular way, which is not something which is looked upon to be the right way or the right policy that we follow, It's fairly drastic. So just to give you a small example on the ethical side and how seriously we take it, if I send a bad joke or a slightly, sensitive joke to a female companion or a female colleague, and she doesn't like it, technically I can be fired. So it's as simple as that. There is no tolerance for that kind of thing. And it goes from the top to the bottom. So it's not like that if I am a senior leader in the leadership team, it won't apply to me. So we do the role modeling piece, we do the leadership behavior piece. And above all, we do a lot of sensitivity training, particularly for the shop floor. The male workers are put through a lot of training programs in which they need to understand that while you need to be a little careful with the female co-workers, at the same time you don't treat them differently. They are the same as you. But that doesn't mean you can do the stuff which a lot of you do, let's say, go out and have chat and make funny jokes and all that. You can't do that with them. You have to be careful. So I think that sort of really catches on, and followed up by leadership behavior. I'll just share one quick anecdote. When I took over this role, so security and facilities for the India region are my responsibility. So my boss had a chat with me and said, hey, we need a lactation room in the reception area. So my ignorance was fairly strong. I said, but we have two already in the facility. Why do we need one more? And then she says, what about the people who are visiting us? There could be new mothers there. Where do they go? So we do have a lactation room in our Pune office at the reception area. And this is, again, quickly on the collaboration piece, we definitely are very proud of our association with organizations like Savi. We do a lot of interactions with the right organization and institutions wherever we get the opportunity. And most of all, we encourage the women, along with the women leaders, to participate in various industry forums so that gradually they become the voice of Cummins across the industry.
Great. Those are all great suggestions of what Cummins is doing, from storytelling to role modeling to sensitivity training and partnerships. So thank you so much. I'll move to you, Ritika. In your role as the Chief Commercial Officer, right? What steps is Honeywell taking to bridge the representation gap in leadership roles, and how can commercial innovation contribute to workforce inclusivity?
Thanks, Namrata. Namrata, if you allow, can I share a bit of Instagram wisdom related to what Ashish said? 30
If you can
seconds,
do
huh?
it in 3 minutes, everything, that's fine.
Sure, okay. Recently, I came across this meme, not a meme, a post on Instagram related to what he said earlier about being gender blind. So it was from a senior person in some big corporation. He said that I had two mentees. One of them was a male, the other one was female. And I taught the female how to be confident, and I taught the male how to do business. And I did not realize that I was treating them differently. And that's also a statement on how a lot of the mentorship programs that we have in organizations for the last 15, 20 years may have outlived its utility. We have to stop telling females to find more boys in the room and raise your hand and be heard and all. Maybe we've all learned that trick, and let's move on from there.
Good
Okay,
point.
30 seconds. Move on to Honeywell. What are we doing at Honeywell? A lot of things. Quite a lot of the general toolkit that is available now, and all well-intending companies, they do that. So starting from hiring, your talent funnel, your dedicated mentorship programs, maternity benefits, childcare benefits, name it, all the usual stuff. We do that in a structural way. We continue to measure us against those metrics, and we do lots of root cause analysis and discussions when something is not right. And on the cultural part, that part I really find interesting. Diversity for us, it goes beyond gender diversity. We talk a lot about all abilities diversity, LGBTQ diversity, neurodiversity, etc. And that just sends a strong message across the organization that diversity is not a good to have. It's very, very central to us. And therefore, even as a female, you don't ever feel like you're being done a favor if you're asking for something special. Because it's just a strategic imperative. You have to do it to create a workforce for the future, even if in the short term, it means taking on certain pain. Because let's say you want to hire a female to a critical role, you have to build some fat in the organization, because if she is in the childbearing age, she might go on a maternity leave next year and someone else has to pick up the work. And then when she comes back, you want to make sure that she still continues the momentum of a career. That just requires you to take some hit on your productivity to make sure that you're creating a diverse workforce, and that's just how it has to be. It's strategically important to you. So that's the kind of stuff we're doing at Honeywell. The other part of the question, again,
Commercial
to unpack
innovation,
there,
yeah.
how can commercial innovation help with gender diversity? So on that one, two different kinds of thoughts in my head right now. One is, imagine a world in which organizations could tokenize their diversity performance and monetize it. That is, if your customers are willing to pay you more, if you're a more gender diverse company, or your shareholders are able to reward you more if you do better on diversity. And this is easier said than done because that is a principle behind why companies report their ESG metrics, their diversity metrics. But in reality, it does not happen. The world is not yet ready for it. As much as the world is not yet even ready to really reward companies on their ESG metrics in true sense of the word. So all of this is still going to take time. We're not ready yet, but I think we should add it to the repertoire of many different tools that need to be utilized. Perhaps one day it will all be meaningful. And in the short term, something that we're already seeing around us is gig economy or any kind of offering solution that allows people to work more flexibly. That's just goes a long way to support women because women in India and also elsewhere in the world, I think we carry extraordinary burden of caregiving responsibility. And caregiving responsibility just needs you to be more flexible. So when we have flexibility built into work schedules, that just helps women participate more.
Great. Thank you so much, Ritika. And I mean, all very interesting points, and it very nicely links me to Chitra, who is Director of Human Resources at Emerson India. We want to understand what are you doing specifically from the HR side. I mean, we heard some bits from Ritika already. No, we want to hear more. So tell us, what is Emerson India doing from the HR side to really promote inclusivity more in your organization?
Sure. A lot of things, but I would highlight 3 or 4 key points from an HR standpoint because I'm at the other side of the table wherein I'm responsible to bring in people in the organization. So when we talk about talent acquisition per se, 2 things very important. A diverse slate, at least one woman in the interview process has to be a female. And there is no second thought about it. That has to happen. That is one. 2, a diverse panel, at least in one round of the interview, so that the person who is coming for the interview feels confident about getting into the organization. They know that they're getting into an organization which really is focusing towards DEI initiatives. That is on the acquisition side. Now, for engaging and retaining them, flexibility, as she mentioned, very important because we are not treating ourselves differently. Let's put it this way, everybody is getting flexibility here, right? It's just that whenever that special time comes when somebody needs time for their family to give care to their children or anybody elderly in the family or whosoever needs it, we should be available to allow them and be human enough to drive that. That is the second point. And we also offer on the top location flexibility for some roles. Put me in that position. I do an India role and I'm based in Noida, right? The corporate office is in Mumbai, the factory is in Pune, and another factory is in Chennai. But how am I managing it from here is only because I have that location flexibility, but I'm there as and when they need me. So you cannot only have flexibility for the sake of it because you are a woman. That's not the right thing to do, but be there as and when the business needs you because ultimately we're all in the stream because of the business, right?
Okay.
Third thing, the most important is developing them at the right time. I think the developmental initiatives, starting from leadership roles to even bringing people from the individual contributor to manager roles, that's a transition. Coaching them, mentoring them, giving them the right help and the hands required to bring them up. Giving them, making them a part of various ERGs. She mentioned about diverse abilities group. She mentioned about LGBTQ. We have to respect and honor some communities because that is how we all will work together. It is not only women, it is so many communities who are trying to really pull in and talk about their voices. It's just hearing the voices from the other side. I think these are a few initiatives that Emerson is trying to drive.
Great. No, I think from the HR side, you've hit all the right notes. And we just hope most of the people here can take back some of these ideas to emulate. I'll move the gears slightly now towards Swati because you're leading policy advocacy strategic planning at GE Vernova. So what specific role, how do you think government policies can play a role in promoting, more inclusivity in the energy sector? Because it does impact all of us sitting here from the industry side, right? So your thoughts.
So to answer your question, I would begin with the with the need to highlight what kind of expertise does this sector require in terms of diversity and inclusion. So if you look at globally, the 36% of the resources who are working in the energy sector, the power sector, they need additional tertiary skills. And 50% of the same, they require some sort of vocational skills. This is what I'm talking about, the resources that we already have, not those who are, who we are aspiring to join us. And there's a whole lot of skill gap which is there, which exists there in the sector that I represent. And how do we bridge that? Because we don't get the required skills ready in the market to be absorbed by the sector. So we need to actually sit and think, how do we do that? So so there is something at the organizational level that you do or attempt to, right? You create your internal policies, which are more synchronized to bring that workforce to your organization and to upskill those which are there in the organization. And there is something which is external to the organization, which is the whole lot of the external government ecosystem wherein you exist and operate, and they can also help you with that. So one thing internally, how do you do that? From the organizational perspective, yes, we have our policies in there. So number one is that we try defining ourselves in technical and non-technical workspaces. If there is something we need to hire people which are not required to be so technical in nature, we don't look at them from that perspective, and then we become sector agnostic. Why? Because we want to entice them to power sector, right? You first get in, you just, we have our set criteria, we have our interviews round, you clear everything, you come to the organization, and then we have courses for you to make you energy and power acclimatized. So we have our fundamentals on power, some programs running up within the organization. We have the whole G. Vernova University going on, right? So if you don't have any background, you're non-technical, come and we'll train you. And for that, we also prioritize training women who are coming from non-technical backgrounds, and for that matter, LGBTQ and others, because we have so many other segments of the society who are aspiring to be part of the power sector. We want to bring them actually, because we understand it's only 18% at the global level that we have the women representation, right, in the sector. So we have to actually up our game, and that's how we do that. We have our foundation running up, which has some sub-segments like women networks and some other Asia-Pacific women networks. So at different levels, we have these networks funded from the foundation, which are supporting STEM education outside, external of the organization. So we collaborate on the projects with the external stakeholders to up our game, right? And then there are girls also at the university level who are aspiring to join the sector as a whole. So we have our courses running up in association with the universities also, with that matter. So I'm just cutting the chase and coming to the external factors. In the government ecosystem, there's a whole lot of effort that we need to make. I think Government of India, if I talk about, so I'm just taking the example of the Government of India because we operate in India. They have their skill development committees in place, the Women Welfare Ministry at that level. They have a very substantial committee which is running up, and they are creating an index, gender parity index for that matter. Unfortunately, that's only meant for the listed, few of the listed, I think 500 or 5,000, I'm not very sure, I'm so sorry. 500, I think, listed entities, but of Indian origin. So I think this is one beginning, and I've been part of that committee, so I know that they're working really hard, creating those benchmarks to see, and that sector agnostic. Where do you excel? So these are the policies, the maternity leaves, what all. So the Government of India was very proactive, asking us what all policies do you need actually to get more women come to the workforce, and we will create the benchmark as per those ideas. So that will be a policy in the making, at least from the India perspective, right? Maybe in the future, to come, we'll see more such ideas coming up for the international organization. So I think this is just one beginning.
Okay. No, great. I think a lot of us don't get to understand what government is doing in partnership with industry. So thank you so much for at least highlighting that aspect. I'll move to you, Kiran. And because you've been extensively working in the power sector and with your leadership, the interesting angle comes with regard to the customer centricity that TPDDL is running, right? And how? I mean, given its distribution, it's a very odd sector for you to drive something to connect with customers. How do you do this? And how has it been a very successful strategy for TPDDL to interface with the customers and bring in more inclusivity?
So I'm just trying to recall my starting days when, like around 10 years back, because coming from an engineering background, initial 20 years I have been into doing the engineering, and then I joined the commercial. So I didn't know about the bill and all, and definitely had never met the customer. Why doesn't the customer pay and all that? So from management point of view, first I would say, so I think the companies should have the policies. So I think at Tata Power we are having great policies, and it is a top driven thing which comes. So like I was identified and put in over there. And then driving with the customers, so definitely I think not one or two, I mean there have been many initiatives, and initially in fact my colleagues, they in fact maybe they didn't want to, or they perceived me as a threat, so they questioned me while the management was trying to position me over there, that will you be able to do as my colleagues, like rather than encouraging. So all the ladies, I mean this also happens in our career, and I mean I'm coming from the days when we were very less in numbers. So this all happened. So what keeps you moving is that your own perseverance. So I mean fine, I mean they tried to kind of prepare me that I should say no to that posting. It would be very difficult. I will have to go and meet the MLAs, ministers and all, handling the government. It's not easy for a lady. All this came. But I think I was clear, and for me, there is no gender for me. I mean, I come with a very, that kind of a background. So, so I just kept going. And when I started heading commercial. So what the next responsibility is, one has to prove yourself basis your work and all. So that hard work definitely has to go, having got that kind of a responsibility. So that kept going, handling the enforcement positions and all. You have to actually, people are looking at you. I think in the earlier session, someone said that they were kind of little in the doubt that we have given this position or this responsibility to a woman, whether she'll be able to do. So when I was also made the head commercial, so my boss said, we have given you, but it's a very crucial 10,000 crore revenue. And so this is all coming to you as a responsibility. Will you be able to do? So you have to prove yourself, and you have to keep proving and keep delivering every single day and night. Secondly, while you are on that, you also have to see that you have to identify potential like women officers, and you have to see that because earlier than you, there were men in that position, and that societal upbringing has actually, the women also lack the confidence, and the men officers also lack the confidence. They used to, so when I used to like kind of say that, okay, let this women handle the position of a customer service manager. So before that, like there was no customer service manager heading a customer care center. But then I took it up that yes, one should be there. So they all have the doubts whether she'll be able to do it, ma'am. I said, yes, why she won't be able to do it when I can do it? So my boss said, you could do it, but she is not you. She is not you. But then you have to instill the confidence in your seniors, in your colleagues, in your subordinates as well. No, please come out of all those thoughts. She will be able to do. And give a chance. So I think as seniors, as we grow in our career, this is a very important responsibility which we have. We have to be a role model, and we have to give opportunities. And I was like, I have always recommended, definitely potential has to be assessed. And then not every role in the company is that you have to stand on the road. There are other roles which are little, like they don't need you, they are not that demanding and rough. So I think as we say कि पांच उंगलियां बराबर नहीं होती, but at least you give the responsibility. Tomorrow they can lead from the back office. They can be heading a group which is not exactly in the front. But then tomorrow they will be prepared to lead it from the front as well. So I think these are the ways wherein like taking the initiatives, being steady in your own working, and encouraging your team members. So all those have actually paved way, and now like there are more than 30 head of the groups in my commercial, and they are women. Now they are men who are head of the groups are less in number, and they say, ma'am, wahan bhi females. So I in fact now find after 10 years that actually there are more women head of the groups more than the men. So that's how it has
So
been.
that's very inspiring. Thank you so much.
If you
Yes.
permit me,
Yes,
Namrata,
please.
I mean, it'll be unfair if I don't cover these three policies which did not get covered here.
Please.
And Schneider Electric recently came as number one in DEI, so it's important that these three policies get shared. So one is what Schneider did was pay equity audit across the globe to ensure that women get paid for that particular role at par, because women do not negotiate as hard. So that was one thing that was taught to women to negotiate, but also an audit done worldwide for pay parity. The second is, besides maternity, every primary caregiver gets 20 weeks of holiday, whether it's a man or a woman. So that means parental responsibility is not just of the mother, but it could be of the father as well. So if you're a primary caregiver, it is, and it could be even adoption, then it is 20 weeks. And if you're a secondary caregiver, it is 4 weeks. And the third is the medical insurance is provided to your gay partner as well, parents or in-laws or whatever. So you have a list that you have to provide, and then you have to select out of that list. And also it covers people, with disabilities, and also special, so even for a sexual disalignment, that is what it is called. I was just trying to get the word. So that means it's, changing your, aligning your sex with whatever you feel like. So even that is covered through
the
medical
insurance.
insurance. So just to add
Yeah,
on
no,
to
these
those
are
things.
great. I mean, these are great additions to what the rest of the panel have said. So thank you so much, Dr. Shalini, for stepping in over there. And with this, we are coming to the end of this session. I have one final round for all of you, which is, I mean, drum roll. It's going to be as leaders, you're driving the change, right, in your respective industry sector. What is that one call to action for inclusivity that you would like to use platforms like Savi to drive? Is something that I want to hear from each one of you. And if you can just take a minute or two at most, just to shed your thoughts. And there's no order, so in fact I'll leave it open to the panel. Anybody can just pick up the mic and just go ahead. But I would want to hear each one of you. So please.
I would suggest, I mean, we all start working collaboratively on the women-led initiatives, women-led projects, specifically in the R&D segment, which is very essential for power and energy and renewable sector as a whole. We don't have enough R&D happening in India. So I'm not here talking about global level. In India, we don't have enough of the R&D happening in the sector. We need more and more research and development, and importantly, we need more women leaders to actually own up such projects. So what if Savi can actually initiate some programs on a collaborative basis? We all have our energies there in the segments wherever we work, and we would love to actually render our energies to work on the projects. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much.
I think from my point of view, I would say charity begins at home. So make sure you don't ask others to do what you would never do. And it's not important what is taught. It's more important what is caught. So be mindful of that when you do your communication and awareness. That's it.
Great.
So I would just use one word: intention. I think the biggest thing that goes missing is the intention of bringing women, involving them, making them a part of it is the intention. Anybody at any level who has the capability to drive should have the intention to drive it the right way. That is
Great,
one point.
Great.
I
Thank you
feel.
so much. Thanks.
Next.
Yeah.
Kiran.
So may I? Yeah. So I think from Savi's angle, I think if Savi as a platform can continue having such connects more often, and we who are already ahead in our career, we would like to be more participative so that our experiences, our learnings, the best practices from our company, we can share across and we can learn from each other. So continuing such platforms where we can deliver and we can learn. And secondly, I think if Savi, I really don't know because this is first time I've been attending, though I'm a member of this V Power also, which is a USAID program. But I think that still women are less in number or less in percentage in terms of representation at the government level policy making. Day before yesterday, I was at an event wherein I happened to meet Secretary MOP. So I was talking to my team, though we keep on working, but then how to have more such connect programs wherein we connect with those officials at a more senior level, wherein especially from the energy power sector, we can get their attention diverted to the needs because we are at the ground level.
Sure.
So we from my our end exactly from the organization point also would connect, but maybe if Savi has a role to play, I leave it to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks so much for that.
For me, it's about, I think we need to work with a very open-minded attitude right now because I don't think we have the answers about what needs to be done next to work towards proper women representation at the highest levels in organizations. So what took us so far is not necessarily going to take us to the end objective. And the problem is, I've lost my train of thought, but yeah, as in we need to think about new solutions because I'm a very engineer-like person in my head, even though I've done strategy and commercial for most of my life. So I need to understand the 5 whys behind a problem to know that a solution ye hai, now we can get it done. And I don't necessarily understand the 5 whys behind some of the teething problems in this issue right now. For example, women find a lot of mentorship but not enough sponsorship. Why is that happening? What's really the root cause behind it? I fail to wrap my head around it completely. So I'm just leaving with the thought that we cannot be complacent. We don't yet know what's the complete solution set. We need to keep working towards
So
it.
maybe the call for action is to deliberate more on the whys and to find out the solutions for how do we crack the code for whys. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah. Great.
We also collaborate with each other
Exactly.
to understand how to
Yeah.
drive this together.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, so I think being the last one, most of the stuff is already said. But being a part of Savi, I think we've done our bit on awareness, which we need to continue. We've done our bit on education, which we need to collaborate more on and, tie those threads. We've done our bit on mentorship, which is growing very well, and Ripu, you've done a phenomenal job there. I think we haven't done our bit on what you talked about, getting the government, key stakeholders, decision making on the table with the private sector and the academia on the table to move the needle to the next level. And I think we need to take upon that call for action very, very seriously.
Great point. And I think that very well summarizes, what we're taking away from this panel. Thank you so much for all of your time. It's going to be impossible for me to summarize all that you've said, and I'm not going to do that. But I only want to thank all of you for taking out the time today, interacting with everybody who's here. And we hope to connect and keeping this dialogue going with all of you. Thank you so much.